Imagine owning something that refuses to remain where you left it. A doll that appears to move from room to room. A painting that supposedly survives every house fire around it. A chair so feared that a museum suspended it from the wall, making sure no visitor could ever sit down, or a jewel connected to royal executions, bankruptcy, addiction, family tragedy, and sudden death. Throughout history, people have believed that certain objects can absorb the emotions, suffering, and darkness of those who once possessed them. Some say these items are haunted, others believe they are cursed, and skeptics argue that the terrifying stories surrounding them are nothing more than coincidence, exaggeration, and folklore. But tonight, we are examining 8 objects whose reputations became so disturbing that people refused to touch them, destroyed copies of them, locked them behind glass, or attempted to bury them forever. Some of these objects remain on display today. Others have seemingly disappeared, and one of them may have been created as an elaborate horror story from the very beginning. Turn down the lights, check the corners of the room, and whatever you do not accept any mysterious antiques after midnight. Welcome to Open at Midnight. Before we begin, remember that many of the events in this video come from folklore, paranormal investigators, previous owners, and newspaper reports. Although the physical objects and portions of their histories are real, supernatural claims surrounding them have not been scientifically proven. But whether these objects are truly cursed may not be the most disturbing question. The more unsettling question is this: why have so many people claimed that their lives changed after coming into contact with them? Let's begin. Number 8. The Crying Boy. Painting at first glance, there is nothing obviously supernatural about the Crying Boy. The image shows a young child staring directly at the viewer, tears running down his face. His expression is not exaggerated. There is no monster behind him, and no obvious sign of danger. He simply looks completely heartbroken. The image was part of a series of sorrowful child portraits associated with Italian artist Bruno Amadio, who also worked under the name Giovanni Bragolin. Reproductions became extremely popular throughout Europe, particularly in Britain, beginning around the 1950s. Tens of thousands of families reportedly hung versions of these crying children in their homes. Then, during the 1980s, something strange began happening. On September 5th, 1985, the British tabloid The Sun published a story claiming that firefighters had repeatedly discovered copies of the Crying Boy paintings, undamaged inside burned homes. The walls around them were blackened. Furniture had been destroyed. Entire rooms had been reduced to ash. Yet the paintings supposedly remained intact. The story quickly spread across Britain. More homeowners began reporting fires in properties where Crying Boy prints were displayed. In some accounts, families claimed the painting had somehow caused the blaze. Others said they attempted to destroy their copies, but the pictures would not burn. Soon, the paintings were no longer seen as inexpensive household decorations. They had become omens. People removed them from their walls, abandoned them outside, and mailed them to newspapers. The panic grew so intense that the Sun organized a mass bonfire where readers' unwanted paintings were publicly destroyed. But there may be a less supernatural explanation. An investigation later suggested that the prints had been coated with a fire-resistant varnish. The cord holding a painting could burn through early in a fire, causing the picture to fall face down. Once on the floor, it would be partially protected from flames and heat. In other words, the picture may not have been surviving because it was cursed. It may have survived because of how it was manufactured and how it fell. The darker legends about the child also appear to have been added much later. Stories claimed that the boy was an orphan named Don Bonillo, sometimes called Diablo, whose presence caused fires wherever he went. researchers have found little reliable evidence that this child ever existed. But facts do not always kill a legend. Even today, images of crying children feel unnerving to many viewers. Not because the child looks evil, but because he appears to know something terrible, something he cannot explain. And perhaps the most unsettling detail is that the painting does not show us what made him cry. It only shows us the aftermath. So was the crying boy cursed, or was a practical explanation transformed into mass panic by a terrifying newspaper headline? Either way, thousands of people once believed that simply hanging this child's face inside their home could end in flames. And the next object does not merely survive destruction. According to legend, it causes death. Number 7, the Busby Stoop Chair. Inside the Thirsk Museum in North Yorkshire, England, hangs an ordinary-looking wooden chair, but visitors are not permitted to sit in it. In fact, the chair is displayed high above the ground, reportedly to prevent anyone from accidentally taking a seat. It is known as the Busby Stoop Chair, or the Dead Man's Chair. Its legend begins with a criminal named Thomas Busby. Busby lived in the area around the end of the 17th century and was involved in illegal activity, including a counterfeiting operation. He had a volatile relationship with his father-in-law, Daniel Audie. In 1702, after an argument, Busby murdered Audie. Busby was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to death by hanging. According to local legend, shortly before his execution, Busby was allowed one final drink at his favorite public house. As he stood up from his usual chair, he supposedly declared that anyone who sat in it after him would die. Then he was taken away and executed. For years, the chair remained inside the inn, and gradually, stories began attaching themselves to it. Some accounts claimed that chimney sweeps, laborers, and unsuspecting travelers sat in the chair and died shortly afterward. During World War II, airmen stationed nearby were said to have dared one another to sit in it. According to the legend, several of those who accepted the challenge never returned from combat. Another story involved a construction worker who sat in the chair during his lunch break and later died after falling from a roof. One version claimed that a delivery driver sat down for only a moment before dying in a road accident that same day. The number of deaths attributed to the chair changes depending on who tells the story. Some claim 4, others claim dozens. The inn's landlord eventually decided that no one should be allowed to use it again. In 1978, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, where it was placed out of reach. However, there is a major problem with the legend. A furniture expert who examined the chair reportedly determined that its construction methods dated it to approximately 1840. Thomas Busby was executed in 1702. That means the chair currently displayed may have been made more than a century after Busby's death. It could not have been the same chair he cursed, unless, of course, the curse became attached to a replacement. Or the story was never about a specific chair at all. Perhaps the true power of the Busby Stoop Chair is not supernatural. Perhaps its power comes from suggestion. Imagine sitting in a chair after being told that everyone who uses it dies. Every pain in your chest would feel suspicious. Every car approaching too quickly would seem like fate. Every accident would become proof that the chair's curse had begun. Even now, the museum does not allow visitors to test the legend. The chair remains suspended above the floor. Maybe that is simply good showmanship. Or perhaps, after hundreds of years of stories, no one wants to be responsible for discovering that the curse was real. Number 6. The hands resist him. In February 2000, an unusual painting appeared for sale on eBay. The artwork showed a young boy and a doll standing in front of a glass-paneled doorway. Behind the glass, dozens of small hands pressed forward from the darkness. The painting was titled, "The Hands Resist Him." Artist Bill Stoneham created it in 1972, reportedly using a childhood photograph of himself as inspiration. According to Stoneham, the doorway represented a boundary between the waking world and a realm of imagination and possibility. The doll was intended to act as a guide. The hands represented alternate lives or paths. But when the painting appeared on eBay, nearly 3 decades later, its sellers offered a much more frightening interpretation. The elderly couple selling it claimed they had found the artwork abandoned near an old brewery. After bringing it home, they allegedly began noticing strange activity. They said the boy and the doll moved during the night. Sometimes they appeared to change positions. At other times, the figures supposedly left the painting entirely and entered the room. The sellers placed a motion-triggered camera in front of the artwork. They posted photographs which they believed showed the doll threatening the boy with an object resembling a weapon, forcing him toward the doorway. Stoneham later explained that the supposed weapon was most likely a battery and loose wires depicted in the painting, but the eBay listing had already become an early internet sensation. The sellers included a warning stating that they would not be held responsible for anything that happened after the painting was purchased. People viewing the listing began reporting headaches, nausea, uneasiness, and nightmares. Some claimed that simply looking at the digital image caused their children to scream. Others refused to open the listing after dark. The page reportedly attracted more than 30,000 views. After beginning with an opening bid of $199, the painting sold for $1,025. It was purchased by Perception Gallery in Michigan. The new owner contacted Bill Stoneham and told him about the terrifying reputation his artwork had gained. Stoneham was surprised. However, he also revealed a detail that made the legend even more disturbing. The gallery owner who originally displayed the painting and the art critic who reviewed it were both said to have died within approximately 1 year of encountering the work. Of course, that does not prove the painting caused anything. People die. Coincidences happen, and disturbing images can trigger physical reactions, particularly when viewers are warned that an image is dangerous before seeing it. But there is something psychologically powerful about the hands resist him. The boy's expression appears emotionless. The doll does not look alive, but it does not look completely lifeless either, and the hands behind the glass appear desperate to enter or escape. Perhaps the painting is not haunted. Perhaps it simply succeeds too well at what art is meant to do. It creates a feeling that remains with you long after you look away. But our next object did not begin as a piece of art. It began as an eBay listing with a story so frightening that it eventually inspired a Hollywood movie. Number 5. The Dybbuk Box. In 2003, a small wooden wine cabinet appeared for sale on eBay. Its seller, Kevin Mannis, claimed he had purchased it at an estate sale in Oregon. According to the story, the box had once belonged to an elderly Jewish woman who survived the Holocaust. Her granddaughter allegedly warned Mannis that the cabinet was never supposed to be opened. The woman referred to it as a Dybbuk box. In Jewish folklore, a dybbuk is generally understood as the restless spirit of a deceased person that attaches itself to or possesses a living human being. However, the idea of trapping a dybbuk inside a wine cabinet does not appear to be a traditional feature of that folklore. According to Mannis's original account, the cabinet contained several strange items, including dried flowers, coins, a candle holder, locks of hair, and a small statue. After opening it, Mannis claimed that terrifying events began. He said lights malfunctioned, foul odors appeared without explanation, and shadowy figures moved through his peripheral vision. His mother allegedly suffered a stroke shortly after receiving the box as a birthday gift. Other people who handled it reportedly experienced nightmares involving an old woman. Manis eventually sold the box. The next owner, a college student named Josef Nietzsche, claimed that light bulbs burned out, electronic devices failed, and hair loss occurred while the box remained in his possession. The cabinet later passed to Jason Haxton, a museum director who wrote a book about his experiences. Haxton claimed that he developed health problems, including hives, coughing, and metallic tastes in his mouth. The story eventually became the inspiration for the 2012 horror film, The Possession. For years, the Dybbuk Box was presented as one of the most dangerous, haunted objects in the world. But then the story began to unravel. Investigators found major inconsistencies in the box's history. The cabinet's alleged connection to a Holocaust survivor was difficult to verify. More importantly, Manis reportedly later acknowledged that he had created the story surrounding the object. That revelation transformed the Dybbuk Box from a supposedly ancient cursed artifact into something perhaps even more fascinating. A modern legend created in real time. Before the eBay listing, Dybbuk boxes were not widely recognized as a historical Jewish tradition. After the listing became famous, similar boxes began appearing for sale across the internet. People started manufacturing them, collectors purchased them, paranormal creators opened them on camera. A fictional concept seemingly became a new piece of folklore, simply because enough people repeated it. And that raises a disturbing possibility. Can an object become haunted after people begin believing that it is? If thousands of people expect fear, illness, and nightmares from a wooden box, could that expectation create genuine physical and psychological experiences? The Dybbuk Box may not be an ancient container imprisoning an evil spirit, but it demonstrates how quickly a frightening story can escape its creator's control. Once a legend enters the world, it no longer belongs to the person who invented it. It belongs to everyone who believes it. Number 4. The Unlucky Mummy. Inside the British Museum is an ancient Egyptian object commonly known as the Unlucky Mummy. But the name is misleading. It is not actually a mummy. The object is a painted wooden mummy board, an inner coffin lid created to cover the body of an unidentified woman. The artifact dates to around 950 BC and was likely discovered near Thebes. It is made from wood and plaster and measures approximately 162 centimeters, or just over 5 feet, in length. The British Museum identifies it as object EA22542. The woman for whom it was created remains unknown. The hieroglyphic inscriptions contain religious phrases, but apparently do not identify the deceased by name. Because of the craftsmanship and design, early researchers speculated that it may have belonged to a woman of high social status, possibly someone connected to temple rituals. The object entered the British Museum's collection in 1889. Then came the curse stories. According to one popular version, several young English travelers purchased or encountered the coffin lid while visiting Egypt. Afterward, one supposedly disappeared into the desert. Another was accidentally shot. A third suffered financial ruin. A fourth became seriously ill. The artifact was allegedly photographed, but the photographer died soon afterward. A journalist who wrote about the curse was also said to have died by suicide. Some versions claimed museum employees became sick or died after handling the object. Eventually, one of the most famous stories connected the artifact to the sinking of the Titanic. According to the legend, the unlucky mummy was being secretly transported to America aboard the ship when it sank in April 1912. There is one major problem. The artifact never left the British Museum. Museum records show that it remained in London. It was not aboard the Titanic. The story may have developed because a man named William Stead, who was fascinated by supernatural stories, told passengers aboard the Titanic about a cursed mummy before the ship sank. Stead died in the disaster. Later, his story and the museum artifact appear to have merged into one legend. The unlucky mummy became responsible for a tragedy it was never physically near. The artifact also became connected to World War I, illness, and other disasters. But again, reliable documentation supporting those supernatural connections is limited. The mummy board remains inside the British Museum. Visitors pass it every day. Most leave unharmed, yet its painted face continues to stare outward through the glass, belonging to a woman whose name disappeared thousands of years ago. Perhaps the real curse is not death. Perhaps it is being remembered forever, not as a person, but as an anonymous object feared by strangers. Number 3. The Hope Diamond. Few cursed objects are as beautiful or as valuable as the Hope Diamond. The deep blue diamond currently weighs 45.52 carats and is housed at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Its documented history can be traced to the 17th century. French merchant Jean-Baptiste Tavernier acquired a much larger blue diamond, weighing more than 112 carats, likely from the Kollur mine in India. Tavernier sold the stone to King Louis XIV of France. The diamond was recut and became known as the French blue. It entered the French crown jewels and was worn ceremonially by royalty. During the French Revolution, the crown jewels were stolen. The French blue disappeared. Approximately 2 decades later, a smaller blue diamond appeared in London. Research has since supported the conclusion that the Hope Diamond was cut from the stolen French blue. Eventually, the stone entered the collection of the wealthy Hope family, from whom it received its modern name. The diamond passed through multiple owners before being acquired by American jeweler Pierre Cartier. Cartier sold it to American socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean in the early 20th century, and this is where the curse became famous. McLean reportedly wore the diamond frequently and sometimes allowed guests to hide it during parties as part of games. But her life contained immense tragedy. Her young son died in a car accident. Her daughter later died from a drug overdose. Her husband left her, experienced mental deterioration, and died in a psychiatric institution. McLean eventually faced serious financial difficulties. After her death, jeweler Harry Winston purchased her jewelry collection. In 1958, Winston donated the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian. He sent it through the United States mail in a plain brown package. The package was insured for $1 million. The diamond arrived safely. Even the postal worker associated with its delivery was later pulled into curse stories after experiencing personal misfortunes, although such claims are difficult to separate from ordinary tragedy. The Hope Diamond's curse is often pushed further back through history. One legend claims Tavernier stole the gem from the eye of a Hindu statue and was later torn apart by wild dogs. Historical records do not support that dramatic ending. Tavernier appears to have lived into his 80s and died in Russia. Other curse stories connect the diamond to the executions of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. The French blue was part of the royal collection, but there is no reliable evidence Marie Antoinette regularly wore the stone. Many historians believe the curse was heavily exaggerated by newspapers and jewelers because danger made the diamond more desirable. Pierre Cartier may have used the legend while marketing it to Evelyn Walsh McLean. a beautiful diamond is valuable, but a beautiful diamond that destroys its owners is unforgettable. Today, the Hope Diamond remains one of the Smithsonian's most famous attractions. Millions of visitors have viewed it without incident. It has not disappeared, it has not caused the museum to collapse, and no verified supernatural force has been detected around it. But there is no denying the pattern of tragedy connected to several people who possessed it. Perhaps the diamond is cursed, or perhaps wealthy, powerful families experience public misfortune simply because every detail of their lives is recorded. Still, if someone offered you the Hope Diamond tonight, would you wear it? Or would you wonder what price you were truly expected to pay? Number 2. The Basano Vase. Unlike the Hope Diamond, the location of the Basano Vase is unknown. In fact, there is very little reliable historical evidence proving that the object existed exactly as described. But its legend is one of the most frightening curse stories ever attached to an antique. According to the tale, the Basano Vase was a silver vase created in 15th century Italy. It was supposedly given to a young woman as a wedding gift. On the night of her wedding, the bride was found dying or already dead, still clutching the vase in her hands. The cause of her death was never established. The vase remained within her family and was passed from one relative to another. Each new owner reportedly died shortly after receiving it. Eventually, the family decided to hide the object. It was placed inside a box and buried in a secret location. Centuries passed. Then, sometime during the late 20th century, the box was reportedly discovered. Inside was the silver vase and a written warning. The message allegedly read, "Beware. This vase brings death." Rather than destroying the vase, the person who found it supposedly sold it at auction. A pharmacist purchased it. He died within months. The vase was sold again to a surgeon. He also died. A third owner acquired it and reportedly suffered the same fate. By this point, no one wanted the object. The police were allegedly asked to take it, but refused. According to the final part of the story, the vase was placed inside a lead container and buried somewhere secret, where it remains today. There are no museum records, no verified photographs, no confirmed chain of ownership. Even the spelling of the name varies, perhaps connecting it to the Italian town of Bassano del Grappa. The story may be complete folklore, but that absence of evidence makes it strangely effective. With the other objects in this video, we can locate them, we can study them, we can determine when they were produced. But the Basano Vase could theoretically be anywhere. It could be buried beneath an abandoned building. It could be locked inside a private collection, or someone could own it without understanding what it is. Perhaps it was never real, but every antique begins as an object without a warning label. Number 1. Annabelle. The Annabelle doll portrayed in the Conjuring films is a cracked porcelain figure with a sinister face. The real Annabelle looks completely different. She is a large, Raggedy Ann doll with red yarn hair, a triangle-shaped nose, and a cheerful painted smile. That innocent appearance may be what makes the story so disturbing. According to the account popularized by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the doll was given to a young nurse named Donna in 1970. Donna shared an apartment with another nurse named Angie. At first, the doll simply sat on Donna's bed. Then the women began noticing that it had changed positions. Its arms or legs would be arranged differently. Sometimes it would appear in another room. Donna and Angie reportedly began finding handwritten notes around the apartment. The messages allegedly read, "Help me," and "Help us." The women claimed the messages appeared on parchment-like paper they did not own. They also reported finding what looked like blood on the doll. Believing a spirit might be attempting to communicate, they contacted a medium. During a seance, they were told that the spirit belonged to a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on or near the property. The spirit allegedly told them that it felt safe with Donna and Angie and wanted to remain with them, feeling sympathy for the child. They gave it permission to stay. According to the Warrens, that was a dangerous mistake. A male friend named Lou reportedly disliked the doll and repeatedly warned Donna to get rid of it. One night, Lou claimed he awoke unable to move. He saw the doll at his feet. It supposedly climbed onto his body and began strangling him until he lost consciousness. During another incident, Lou heard noises coming from Donna's room while no one was inside. He entered and found the doll sitting alone. Then he felt something behind him. When he turned around, no one was there. A burning pain spread across his chest. He discovered a series of claw-like scratches that reportedly disappeared unusually quickly. Donna then contacted a priest, who eventually put her in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens concluded that the doll was not possessed by the spirit of a child. They claimed that an inhuman or demonic entity was manipulating the doll in an attempt to gain access to a human host. The Warrens took Annabelle from the apartment. According to their account, the drive home became dangerous. Their vehicle allegedly experienced steering and braking problems until Ed sprinkled holy water over the doll. Annabelle was eventually placed inside a specially constructed wooden case at the Warrens' occult collection in Connecticut. A warning was attached to the glass. Positively, do not open. One of the most repeated stories involved a young man who visited the collection and mocked the doll. He reportedly challenged Annabelle to harm him and struck the glass case. Ed Warren ordered him to leave. According to the story, the man and his girlfriend later crashed their motorcycle. The man died while the girlfriend survived. She allegedly said they had been laughing about the doll shortly before the accident. Another visitor was said to have touched or challenged the case and experienced a serious accident on the way home. Critics point out that these stories rely heavily on the Warrens' own accounts and are difficult to independently verify. Skeptics argue that the doll's movement could have been caused by roommates, misunderstanding, storytelling, or deliberate exaggeration. There is no scientific evidence that a demon resides inside Annabelle. But the doll has become one of the most recognizable paranormal objects in modern history. The Warren Occult Museum closed to ordinary public access in 2019 because of zoning issues, though Annabelle and other objects from the collection have continued to appear in controlled events and tours. Her reputation has grown far beyond the original case. False reports that Annabelle had escaped or disappeared have repeatedly spread across social media. People react to those rumors as though the doll is a living prisoner capable of escaping its enclosure. And that may be the most powerful thing about Annabelle. She no longer needs to move. She no longer needs to leave notes. She no longer needs to attack anyone. Millions of people already believe she could. The doll simply sits behind glass, smiling patiently. And sometimes the objects that frighten us most are not the ones that chase us. They are the ones that wait. So, are cursed objects real? There is no scientifically verified evidence proving that a chair, painting, diamond, doll, or ancient artifact can deliberately cause death or misfortune. Many of these stories collapse when examined closely. The crying boy may have survived fires because of fire-resistant varnish. The Busby chair appears to have been manufactured long after Thomas Busby's execution. The Titanic never carried the unlucky mummy. The Dybbuk Box may have begun as a fabricated eBay story, and the Hope Diamond's curse may have been amplified to increase its mystery and value. But explanations do not always remove fear. A cursed object is rarely frightening because of what it physically does. It is frightening because it changes how we interpret everything that happens afterward. Once someone tells you an object is cursed, a broken light bulb is no longer a broken light bulb. a nightmare is no longer just a nightmare. A sudden illness becomes a warning, an accident becomes proof, and coincidence becomes destiny. Maybe objects cannot carry evil, but stories can. Stories pass from owner to owner. They attach themselves to ordinary things. They survive fires, wars, death, and disbelief. And sometimes, long after the original facts disappear, the warning remains. Do not touch, do not open, do not sit down, and do not take it home. Which object from tonight's video would you be most afraid to own? And do you believe objects can absorb the energy of the people who once possessed them? Tell me your answer in the comments. And should you own, or have footage of, an object you believe may be haunted? Send your story to open@midnight. Your experience could be featured in a future episode. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us again when history, mystery, and darkness meet. After midnight, until then, keep the lights on and be careful what you bring home.